All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest strategic puzzles out there: how India plans to deter China's military, which, as we all know, is modernizing at an incredible pace. For New Delhi, this isn't a theoretical exercise. They're facing some really tough choices, and the entire military balance in Asia could be at stake.
And that really gets us to the heart of the matter. It's not just about counting soldiers or tanks anymore. The real problem is that technology is just moving so fast, way faster than military thinking can sometimes keep up. So how do you make the right bet, a multi-billion-dollar bet, on the future of warfare when the rules of the game are being rewritten almost every single year?
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at just how big this challenge has become. Then we'll explore 3 different strategic roads India could go down. After that, we'll zoom in on the so-called middle path, figure out the biggest roadblock holding things back, and finally lay out a roadmap for what needs to happen next.
Okay, let's dive in. The core of the problem, really, is that the capability gap between India and China is getting wider. And for Indian defense planners, that's a serious, growing headache. Now, what makes this so tricky is that it's a moving target. The dilemma for India isn't just about money. It's about trying to navigate this blindingly fast-paced world of new tech. If you invest in the wrong thing today, you could create a massive vulnerability for yourself tomorrow. It makes those choices, what to buy off the shelf versus what to build yourself, incredibly high stakes.
So, faced with this pretty complex situation, India is basically standing at a fork in the road. Let's take a look at the 3 very different paths it could take.
This table just lays out the options so clearly. First up, you've got the bold path. This is the all-or-nothing bet on brand-new, revolutionary technologies, hoping to leapfrog the competition. The potential reward is huge, right? But if that bet fails, you're left wide open. Then there's the conservative path. This is about slowly mixing new tech in with what you've already got. It's safe, it's doable, but it's not going to be enough to really change the power dynamic with China. And that leaves us with the middle path, a more balanced approach that's all about building long-term strength without taking those huge, risky gambles right now.
Okay, so let's dig into that middle path, because this is what's being recommended. It's not about buying flashy new fighter jets or tanks. It's really all about building a rock-solid foundation for whatever the future holds.
So the key idea here is this concept of enabling layers. And the analogy they use is just perfect. Think about it like this. If your tanks, ships, and planes are the muscles of the military, then these enabling layers are its nervous system. They're the critical networks that connect everything, that let the whole force see, decide, and act like a single coordinated body. And here's what that nervous system is actually made of. You've got command and control. That's basically the brain. You have ISR, which is just a fancy way of saying intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Those are the eyes and ears. Then you have your long-range punch with deep strike, plus all the systems for the up-close fight. And holding it all together, infrastructure and logistics, the stuff that actually keeps the whole machine running.
It's really important to understand that this isn't some quick fix. The middle path is a long game. The goal here is a slow and steady evolution, building up these foundational layers bit by bit to create a truly integrated military that can work seamlessly across land, air, sea, and even space and cyberspace.
But, and there's always a but, right? A brilliant strategy is pretty useless if you can't actually make it happen. And that brings us to the single biggest thing standing in India's way, the industrial bottleneck.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. India has brilliant engineers, brilliant scientists. The problem isn't a lack of brainpower. The real issue is its defense industry. It's just not set up to pump out the advanced systems they need at the speed and scale that modern warfare demands. And wow, this chart really hammers that point home. It shows you exactly where the investment needs to go, like right now. A massive 40% is just for missiles and munitions, the stuff that gets used up incredibly fast in a fight. And then look, another 50% is split between drones and those critical ISR and C2 networks, the very nervous system we were just talking about. The foundations are what need the most work.
So what's the solution to this huge bottleneck? Well, the analysis is pretty clear. The government just can't do this by itself. The only way forward is to dramatically scale up the country's defense industry by working hand in hand with India's really dynamic private sector.
Which brings us to our final section, how to actually forge that stronger shield. Let's look at the specific, concrete steps needed to make this whole public-private partnership a reality. The roadmap here isn't about some single giant change. It's actually about a series of smart, practical reforms. First, you've got to cut through all the bureaucracy and red tape that just slows everything down. Second, you need stable, predictable budgets so companies can actually plan for the long term. Third, offer long-term contracts to give them the confidence to invest in new production lines. And finally, and this is the big one, you have to truly embrace the private sector as a genuine partner. And that last point is about more than just policy. It really requires a fundamental shift in mindset. It means moving away from the old state-controlled model and recognizing that, hey, private companies are often more nimble, more innovative, and frankly, more efficient at building the complex stuff a modern military needs.
So if we had to boil this all down, what's priority number one? It's this: winning the information war. On the one side, you have to build up your own C4 ISR system so you can see the battlefield clearly, make fast decisions, and act. And at the exact same time, you have to be working to blind your adversary, to deceive them, to disrupt their systems, and to degrade their ability to do the same thing. The side that wins this fight has a massive advantage.
And priority number two is closing a really dangerous gap in firepower. I mean, look at this chart. China has a huge inventory of missiles, and crucially, the industrial power to churn out thousands more if a conflict starts. India's stockpiles are way lower, and its ability to ramp up production is, well, it's strained. If that gap isn't fixed by getting domestic production into high gear, India risks getting completely overwhelmed in a long fight.
And that leaves us with this final thought. For decades, right, we've measured military strength by just counting up the number of tanks, ships, and planes. But what if the real foundation of deterrence in the 21st century isn't just about having more weapons, but about having a smarter, faster, and more innovative system for building them? Maybe the strongest shield isn't just built with steel, but with reform.
You can download the complete notes of this video from the pinned comment below. If this video helped, do like and subscribe to the BriefCase for daily visual explanations.